KevOnStage has been making people laugh since he was a kid. Kevin used that talent to make a name for himself with his viral videos accumulating millions of views and fans. With a growing fan base, Kevin launched the Real Comedians of Social Media Tour, which has now sold out in over 50 cities worldwide for a second consecutive year. Now, with the coronavirus keeping live shows and touring at a standstill, Kevin found an innovative way to continue telling jokes while keeping everyone home safe too. Today on the show, we've got KevOnStage to talk to us about how he's keeping comedy alive during the pandemic. First of all, Kevin, thank you so much for joining us. How are you doing?
I'm great. Thank you guys so much for having me. And also kudos to you, the Comedy Hype team.
Well, we definitely do appreciate your love, and we appreciate you joining us as well. Also calling in, we have our very own Doug Williams. Doug, how are you doing?
Great. You know, I'm happy to be here to talk to Kevon. I consider him to be a pioneer. He has a blueprint. He is a prime example of doing it for yourself. You don't have to wait on anybody. So it's always a pleasure when you get to talk to, a Black entrepreneur, because that's what he is. He's a Black entrepreneur, and it's an honor to be able to sit here and pick his brain.
And I know you two actually have, met up with each other or spoken to each other before this. Doug, you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I was scrolling through, whenever somebody posts something of Kevon's stature, people will tag you on it. And he posted, not too long ago, he posted the roast, the Jamie Foxx roast. So I get all these tags, people are tagging me, and I'm like, what's going on? And I scroll up to the top of the page and it's Kevon. I'm like, oh no, don't tell me Kevon is posting the roast. So, I sent out a response to it, just a general response saying that, hey, because at that point I hadn't responded to it at all. And I just sent out a post saying, hey, it's all good. This doesn't bother me. My kids have seen this. I mean, you guys actually read my response to that when you did the story on it. And then Kevon sent me a real nice email saying, hey man, I didn't mean anything by it. I was just posting it. He said, hey, I admire your work. So, I felt good about that. But I wanted to ask Kevon, I said, was it just something you were just posting that's popular? I mean, you just feel
honestly, Doug, it just crossed my mind, man. It was, it's an iconic thing, that whole roast and everything. It's an iconic thing in Black comedy. And I was just thinking about it, and I honestly didn't put too much by it. I didn't really mean it wasn't like, oh man, let me go out of my way to get at Doug Williams today. You know what I mean? I was just thinking about it. Just sometimes I think about random jokes and things, and I had saw it online and I hadn't posted it in a while. But I definitely, like Doug said, I reached out and was like, bro, I was not trying to just throw shots at you out of nowhere. You know what I'm saying? I really admire your comedy.
And in fairness, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. In fairness, up until that point, I hadn't responded, or I hadn't really put out anything on that roast or what have you. So, real men talk. It was great to talk to you. Like I said, the feeling is mutual. Fan of your work or what have you. And I didn't take it that it was done in malice. I think that people look at it that way. You know what I mean? And people receive it and they bring it and they brought it to me that way or what have you. But just to be able to talk to you, we worked it out, and like I said, man, fan of your work, and just happy to be here doing the interview. So thanks.
Thank you so much, sir. The feeling is definitely.
Kev, what compels you to call him? Is that something that you usually do when someone responds to a roast that you put out on them, or is this something you just felt compelled to do for Doug?
Well, a couple things. Usually when I make fun of a lot of people on the internet, myself included, I try never to be malicious to the point where if the person in the video sees it, they won't be upset. You know what I mean? But I've been a fan of Doug. Doug's done other comedy. He's been on other stuff. He's on TV all the time. So I was, well aware of that. And honestly, we had done a lot of roasting in All Deaf, and it was still when I was, really engrossed in all that. But when he reached out, I wanted to just be clear, Doug is a generation ahead of me as far as comedy goes, you know what I mean? And those OG comedians laid the groundwork for us, We wouldn't be able to do things like Roast Me if they didn't have, Shaq's All-Star Roast and things like that. So it was really important for him to hear my, my point of view that, because I could have been, he wouldn't have known if he didn't ask. I could have been like, man, forget you, Doug Williams, blah, blah, blah. You know what I'm saying? But it definitely wasn't like that. Like I said, I appreciate everything that he's done and the comedians ahead of us have done, have laid the groundwork for us.
And has any other celebrity ever took offense to a roast that you've done or a video that you put out about them?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I've been blocked. I was just listening to Janae Eiko's Tiny Desk. I was blocked by her. Don't even know exactly what I said. People take a lot of offense. I've been killed by Christian comedians, by regular Christian people, by other comedians. I mean, the bigger my platform grows, the more weight I carry. And that's another thing I didn't realize. Like sometimes that post is more as a fan of comedy, not as a comedian. You know what I mean? Like this, I was just a fan in that moment, not like I still don't consider myself on the level of Doug or Jamie Foxx or any of the comedians that were there. Monique, these people have done bigger things than I've done. So I really didn't realize what weight my platform carried, which is a little naive on my part, to be honest. I have close to 1 million followers on Instagram and over 1 million on Facebook and close to 1 million on YouTube. So it was kind of naive to think that wouldn't get around. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, I mean, you live and learn. I won't be doing that again.
So like you say, you've been at this for a long time, but you have new people that are joining into your stage crew, as you like to call your fan base. So when did things, you first start in comedy? What was that like for you?
The first time I actually did comedy, I was in church, 16 years old, just doing a talent show. But I wouldn't say my career started then. I was just kind of like messing around. I feel like I got fired in 2009, I believe. And that's when I really started to be like, I should go after this because I'm not going to be able to work a 9 to 5 successfully. I'm going to keep getting fired from these jobs. So I need to like do something else where I can't get fired. So in 2009, I really started kind of going hard, and I've been kind of going hard ever since.
And out of curiosity, that up until this point, about how many videos or content that you've created or been involved in up to this point?
Oh man, at least one video a day for the last 8 years.
Wow.
And that's conservative because that's like one like side by side or rant style video. But with all the podcasts I shoot, most of the time I'm posting two videos a day on most days. So it's thousands and thousands of videos that I've done.
And to stay consistent, you said 8 years, at least one video a day?
2013 was when I really started, and I really haven't taken any serious break at any time.
Well, I definitely can see the consistency, and you're continuing to grow. Now, I remember, way back early on, you used to be involved in a skit group called Playmakers. What was the concept of that skit?
Well, we were actually making plays at first, and we were trying to be like Tyler Perry, and then we realized we weren't going to do that. So we had like basically a meeting, like, man, we're gonna have to like basically quit this industry and just coach our kids basketball and hope one of our kids goes to the league. And then before that, I was like, man, let's just try and make some YouTube videos because there's a lot of comedians who are making a living off YouTube. And our goal wasn't necessarily that, but it was basically to get enough viewers so that we can tour our plays around because we only had fans in the Tacoma, Washington area. And then very quickly we realized that the YouTube was a vehicle by itself. So we switched gears then. We started doing comedy shows as Playmakers. That was probably in early 2013. And we just kept going and going. We eventually moved to LA. We're starting to work with Tracy Edmonds on her All Right TV network. And then that kind of fizzled out, in about 6 months. And shortly after Ant and Jay, both the guys in the Playmakers, my brother and my friend moved out of LA, and then I just kept.
So when you made
going.
that transition to, actually making plays to YouTube, was an inspiration still Tyler Perry? Because I know you mentioned, that was an inspiration, for you all to make plays. But when you transitioned to YouTube, would you say that Tyler Perry was still an inspiration?
Not in the same way. I think now one of my goals is to be able to give as many opportunities to Black creators as Tyler does, but on the digital side of the world. But as far as like doing plays and things like that, I realized that that model for us wasn't going to work. It's just, it was really expensive, way more expensive than we could have ever imagined. So we just felt like we would focus on the internet, but I do want to give as many opportunities to, and own my content that like he does. I feel like his biggest asset is he owns his content and he can either make it or license it. And he has so much more control that way. Doug, you had a question? Yeah.
When did you get to a point, because, I'm familiar with your plight. I mean, I always say that comedians we're all connected. We all gave up something and started doing this, stepped out on faith. At what point did you realize, hey, I can make a living for this? And, when money started coming in to the point to where you said, okay, I can sustain myself. Because when you're first starting out, you have to balance working a regular job or working and pursuing the dream. So at what point did you realize, man, I'm making enough money now to where I can focus completely on this?
I honestly still ain't sure when that is gonna happen.
Come on, Kevon. Come on now, man. Come on.
I want to say when I was working at All Def, and I started touring, and probably by the first 3 or 4 months, I was like, if this goes the way it's going, I don't need this job. Like if I got fired right now, I'd always, and what I mean by that, I could always make it. Like I didn't need the money at All Def ever, right? But for my family, I needed that security. But there came a point where I was making more touring than I was working a full-time job. So by that point, flying back, they had given me Fridays off to work remote. So I'd leave Thursday night or Friday morning, go do a show on Friday in one city, Saturday in one city, Sunday on another city, fly back Monday morning and go straight to All Def, and then go home at 7 or 8 o'clock on Monday night. I did that for 8 months, on tour. And when the tour was winding down, I realized I didn't have the energy to do that again. You know what I mean? I was like, I could be a good family man. I could work at All Def. I could tour, but I could only do 2 of those things. So I decided to focus on my family and tour and quit All Def.
Awesome. And speaking of creators and comedians, someone that we actually had on our show was Brandon T. Jackson, and we kind of dove into his thoughts on Black comedians wearing the dress. It was something that he felt like he didn't, he wished he wouldn't have done. He kind of regretted doing. And I know with you back when you were with Playmakers, during that time you kind of decided to wear a dress. Were there any?
I did not wear no dress. I wore a wig. I ain't wear no dress. Don't put me in that dress. Don't put me in that dress. I always had pants on.
Shirt?
But I had pants. I just want to be clear. I had pants on all the time in men's shoes. Just let the record reflect. I had pants on and I had men's shoes on.
Let me ask you a question to that degree, because we're in the same field. We're colleagues. Why do you feel that there's a new consciousness for Black men not to wear a dress, and that there has been a stigma placed on Black men who have worn dress to the point now to where if you do that, you consider, for lack of a better word, a sellout to the Black man?
Well, that's a great question. I feel like it depends, right? When I grew up, the comedy I watched was Martin Lawrence and Jamie Foxx, Wanda. Like, there was no backlash. Martin played all the characters. I don't even think we thought, him playing Mama Payne versus Roscoe and Shanae versus Oda. I didn't even think of it like, oh, he's in a dress now. You know what I mean? It was just like, Martin is funny. Eddie Murphy, he played all the characters in The Nutty Professor. Not Nutty Professor. No, was it Nutty Professor? Yeah, was it Nutty Professor?
Yeah, Nutty Professor.
Yeah, Nutty Professor. Right? And I feel like there was no stigma.
Hercules.
Yeah, okay. I thought I was tripping. So there was no stigma there. And then when Tyler came out, there was a little bit of a stigma, but the more of his base was like cool with it. I think in the proliferation of social media, it became more of a thing. Even Martin, when he played, and he was in Big Mama's house, I don't remember any of my friends complaining about him being in a dress because it was just like he did in the Martin show. So we loved it. We thought it was hilarious. However, and then when the reason we wore wigs for the Playmakers is because we didn't have any actresses. My wife and our wives wouldn't do it. We didn't have money to pay anybody. We went out to all the girls we knew. And they were like, nope, I'm not funny. I'm not funny. And we were like, man, we're going to miss this opportunity. The first video we made was stuff Black parents say. We were just dressed like ourselves. And stuff like church girls say, we had wigs and stuff on. But kind of early 2013, I felt like what I didn't like is people feeling like, oh, you're only funny if you have that on. For me, right? And I was like, I guarantee you I'm not. I'll never wear a wig again and still have a career. You know what I'm saying? So for me, it was that. And to be honest, I feel like it's up to the person. You know, to Doug's point, I feel like there is more of a stigma now than there was before. You know what I'm saying? But, you know, it's you're right as a creator to do whatever you feel. It was just for me, I took it as a personal challenge to prove to naysayers that it wasn't something that I needed to be funny. And
how much do you think that, because here's what I've noticed, and like I said, you and I are both in the same world. It seems to me that more emphasis were placed on this when Dave Chappelle came out and he made the big statement that, you know, that was one of the reasons or one of the conflicts he had with the Chappelle show is that they wanted him to put on a dress. And, you know, he went on to say that was in some ways degrading for a Black man to do that. And I noticed right after that, there was this whole almost revolution because of his platform, you know, of, hey, we can't do that. Dave Chappelle said this and that, and then now we got to stand up with Black men. Do you feel like that played a significant part in the consciousness around it?
I think it had a huge part. I might even point to it as the reason that you know, became a bigger point. And also social media, like social media wasn't as big when Big Mama's House first one came out. So it was like, if your friends didn't care or your group of friends, you know, didn't care, but you know, things get legs on social media. It becomes more and more of a talking point. And then it was like, you know, that Hollywood's always trying to get the Black man in the dress. And I don't know how true that is. I'm not in Hollywood like that. So I think, but to your point, I totally agree. I think Dave Chappelle's stance on that, because he carried so much weight, and also because people respected that he turned, you know, $50 million down, and that was unheard of, you know. So people were like, oh, that, you know, he has principles. More of our brothers should be like that. So I definitely feel like that, you know, statement and the combination of social media is a big reason why that became more of a stigma. And there's still a lot of creators who wear wigs and, you know, they just deal with the comments and things like that.
You know, here's the thing, and I was going to say this with Kevon, and see if I can get him to echo the sentiments that I'm about to put forth. I think that it's so stifling, though, because no one person should have that burden of carrying the Black race forward to the point where it kills your creativity. You know, it's not right for everybody. If you come out and say, hey, man, that's not right for me, I respect that. But to put those stipulations out there on somebody like Tyler Perry, who has made his fortune, I mean, let's think about it. That character essentially liberated him. He came up with Medea, and that propelled him. We came to know him as that character. That built his empire. So if he had that mindset to say, hey, well, you know, they don't want us to wear this, is going to be a knock on my race, he wouldn't be where he is today. So I feel like, and I'm asking this, I'm putting this off on Kevon, do you feel like that no one should have the right to infringe on your creativity or what you want to do by putting it on our race, saying, hey, Kevon, if you make this video about, you know, chicken sandwiches, that's going to set Black people back. So you shouldn't do that. What are your thoughts about that?
Real quick, Doug, my name is Kevin, Doug. Kevin.
Man.
I was trying to find the right time to say it, but
I'm just saying, Kevon. I'm putting
it all good.
I'm sorry about that. Forgive me. I kind of owe you one for the video, so we'll talk.
No, I was good. That's why I was gonna let it go. I was like, man, I'm gonna let it go. I was gonna let it go for that reason.
Kevin, I'm sorry, good brother.
It's all good. You know what? To that, I think that's a good point. I think what happens with the Black community, we are such a community, so we always feel like we all got to be on one accord. And I think as a creator, it's your right to do whatever you want and find your tribe. Like if you want to wear a dress every day of the week, I guarantee you're going to find your audience. But on the other hand of that, you're going to find a lot of people who are going to not like it, who are going to be vocal about it, who are going to say you're stereotyping Black women, things like that. So, you know, that kind of comes with the territory. It's like if you do a whole bunch of politically incorrect humor, you're going to find a lot of people who are like, yeah, man, this is real comedy and we love that. But you're also going to find a lot of people saying you crossed the line and that's not cool and being upset. So as a creator, you always have your right to make whatever you want, but you also are going to have to deal with the blowback of, you know, people being vocal about it. And I think one thing that is a good point that was made, that's often made, is like, what people don't like is the stereotypical nature of a lot of times when people wear wigs. It's you know, it's the stereotype version of Black women that they don't like, as ratchet or whatever. It's not, you know, and if it's really funny, then just get a Black woman to do it. You know what I mean? So that's another reason why I was like, man, this ain't just, you know, it's not going to work for me long term. But yeah, I think there's a lot of things like Black people, we are very community minded. Like, I don't think that's ever going to go away because we all basically want the best for our people, you know, so we want us to be at our best.
I think the problem comes in though, you know, if for us as creators and for us as Black entertainers, if you don't like my style, that's fine. If you think I'm whack, that's fine. But I think when people place that, and you know this, when they place that, hey, you're hurting the Black race, that's when it becomes, that's when it cuts to us. When we're judged, not by our talent, but by what we're doing and how it's affecting the Black community. That's when
right.
We take it, you know, to like, because we just go out and we put out funny content. A lot of times when we're doing things, we're not weighing in our head, okay, how Black people gonna see this? Is this gonna set us back? Is this gonna, we just go, and your creativity can become stifled if every time you got ready to do a skit or comedy, you had to give it the Black litmus test.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like, you know, that's another part of being Black. It's we with white people and Black people, we feel like sometimes it feels like everything you do is representative of the whole race. If you do something crazy, you're letting all Black people down. But there's a lot of Black people in the world, man, and they don't always agree with anything. You know what I mean? Like, we are very community minded, but we're not a monolith. You know what I mean? So I think it's my right to create what I want, and it's your right to say, like you said, I'm funny or I'm whack and trash.
So, Doug, I want to ask you. I noticed, you know, over your time in the comedy world, you haven't wore wigs or dresses. Is there a reason for that? You
know, I'm gonna give a real quick story that brought something to light to me. I auditioned for Joanna Man. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Joanna Man, but it came down to 3 people. It came down to Flex, Miguel Nunez, and me. And we had to do what is called a screen test, where you go in and you do a scene in front of the cameras where they actually film it to see how you look on film, to help the executive producers determine, you know, how you're gonna look as this character. And in order to get ready for that character, I had to put on a wig, I had to walk around, you know, I was doing the method acting at the time. And for me, I just looked at it as, you know, whenever I do something, I kind of look, the test for me is, how will my son see me as this? You know, how will I be perceived by my children? So after that process, I just decided, you know what, that's not for me. Me personally, putting on a wig, acting like a woman, that's not for me. But I did not impose that, because as Kevin said, think of if Martin had never put on a dress in the Martin show, if Jamie had never done one, I mean, we would have been robbed of something, or Flip Wilson for that matter. We can go back to Flip Wilson. We would have been robbed of all of that talent. So my thing is this, you know, speak to what works for you and don't impose that on other people. It's an old saying that goes, censor yourself, not others. So I think that Black people, we have to get to that mindset of what works for us. Now, if somebody is going out and deliberately degrading us or making us look bad, and, you know, it's to the point that, you know, almost like step and fetch it and those type of things, you know, maybe you have an issue. But if somebody is doing what's in their wheelhouse, like, to me, what Tyler Perry is doing is not embarrassing Black people. It's not one of those things that you can stack into that category. So for me personally, that was my quote unquote wake-up call to say, hey, this is not something I want to do. I didn't feel comfortable with it, but to each his own.
So did you actually walk away from Joanna Man, or did someone else just get the part over?
Oh, Miguel actually came in and got the part. Miguel is just a spectacular actor. I was new again here, relatively new in the game. He came in and he got the part, and I would have taken the part had they given it to me. I didn't come to this revelation till probably about 3 or 4 weeks after the audition. I just wasn't comfortable. I was doing something I was uncomfortable doing, and I had an epiphany, like, that's not something I want to do. I don't knock it, but it's just not for me.
And what were your thoughts after the film came out? Like, what were your thoughts when you saw it?
I enjoyed Miguel's performance. I thought he did an exceptional job, but I just did, and I don't know if Kevin feels this way, but I just personally, I don't feel comfortable in a dress. I don't feel comfortable playing a woman. And then, like I said, I'm not knocking it. I'm not saying anything against it. But for me personally, what about you, Kevin? Was there ever a point when you or do you feel, if you were called upon, this is a great litmus question, if there was a movie coming out like Big Mama's House, and you're to the point now where I'm sure people are calling you, man, you're doing an outstanding job.
Doug, you're wrong. They're not calling. This is why I do all my stuff on my own. They definitely aren't calling.
If you were to get that call to play a major box office film, would you turn that role down?
At this point, I would. I feel like
no matter what the money, no matter if they offered you, I mean, and if they wanted to do it, let's take it a step further, because Dustin Hoffman, Tootsie is one of my all-time favorite movies.
Yeah.
If it was going to be done in a classy manner like that, a movie like Tootsie, you would turn that down right now.
I would, and I think it's not the same for a white comedian. I don't feel like they get the same thing. They get away with stuff where it doesn't become a big deal. Will Ferrell, and if he put a dress on right now, you wouldn't hear articles about Will Ferrell destroying the white community and what's happening to white comedy and look what Hollywood's doing to white comedians.
You feel like you would turn it down because of the backlash you would get, or because it's just not for you, or a combination of both? Because I'm hearing you saying basically you wouldn't do it because you feel like you would get backlash from the black community.
Well, yeah, that's definitely part of it. I don't think I could give myself completely to the role. I wouldn't be able to get out of my head enough to think, what are people gonna think for me? You know what I mean? And honestly, because I'm able to create my own stuff, I tend to focus more on creating what I want to create. And that gives me the leverage to not have to be subject to doing something I don't necessarily want to do. I wouldn't want to deal with the backlash, and I don't think I'd be completely comfortable playing the role. And that the public sentiment, at least in the black community, isn't the same as it was 10, 15, 20 years ago. And I'm cool. I don't need the headache.
Doug, I want to ask you, if you were to get an opportunity right now, would you accept that role?
Well, I'm not where KevOn is. I'm not Kevon again. I'm not where Kevin is.
Go with it, Doug. I owe you the whole interview.
Right.
I'm not to the point. He said what he said was very profound, and that he's at a point in time in his career where he can make other choices. That's a joke. You know what? I would have to really, because I do think that there's a certain way you can do things and minimize that backlash. I am just like him. I don't want that backlash. I would have to give it some real consideration how it's done. But off the bat, no, it's not my desire to do that. So I would really have to assess the situation, see what's being offered to me, how I'm going to be betrayed, and if it's something. Because at the end of the day, and I think Kevin can agree to this, at the end of the day, it has to be something that you can get your spirit behind to give it true meaning and to really bring it to life. Like when he's doing his things, you can tell he's passionate about it. And that's what brings it to fruition. That's what brings it to life. So I would really, really have to assess the situation. But off the bat, I would say no, but I would not just close it out. I would at least entertain what's being asked of me and see what the parameters are.
Right, and I know you've kind of already been through the process with Joanna Man. What is that, your audition like, to audition for a woman's part as a man? I know you said you had to go into the audition, I think, with a dress on and a wig. Just kind of, what is that visual? What did that look like? Walk us through that process.
Well, let me preface that by saying this. Miguel is such a talent. Initially, it was just down to Flex and me. Miguel somehow ran into, and I'm loosely giving you the story. He ran into the director on either a golf course, some kind of way they ran into each other. And at the last minute, Miguel was added to the mix. So we were told to audition for that role as if it were a serious movie, where it was an Allen Iverson-like type of character who was very arrogant, who had been kicked out of the NBA and was looking for another chance, and dressed like a woman, got into the WNBA, and found religion, saw the error in his ways, and was able to come back. So it had more of a serious overtone to it. Miguel came in on the audition and was so, so comical that during the audition process, and this is how I remember it, the director said, hey, you know what? Because the scene we had to audition for at Screen Test was serious.
Right.
He sat back and he said, hey, you know what? I want to see this from a comedy standpoint. So forget what you trained for. Give it to me comical. Make it comedical. And if that's a word, I think it's comical. And Flex and I, we're both struggling for words here, Kev. Flex and I were both kind of thrown. Miguel jumped right into it. Because he came in with a comedy mindset. I don't think he came in too serious about it. And he blew it away. Even my wife was at the audition. And I remember coming to her in between takes and she said, Miguel's gonna get this. It was almost like one of those moments, where you're a boxer, you box and they say, hey, look, you gotta go out there and start throwing something. You're losing this fight. So my wife was like, you are losing. Miguel is killing this. And we weren't able to make the transition to go there to the degree Miguel was able to go there, and thus he got the part.
Gotcha. All right. Well, we appreciate you giving us some insight. Kev, I do want to come back to you. Speaking of fighting and pushing through, with coronavirus, as I mentioned earlier, we're kind of seeing a lot of transition go from, in-person shows to on the internet. And I know for you, you've been keeping that show rolling. So I want to ask this route with Keep Your Distance comedy show that you show every Friday on KevOnStage.com. Was this a route that you already had planned before coronavirus, or just like everybody else, you kind of reached a point where it was like, financial struggles or, situations kind of pushed you to create this route to take the show?
No, yeah, it's every other Friday though. By the way,
gotcha. Every other Friday.
Yeah, every other Friday.
We just messing up. We messing his name up.
No, it's all good. I just want people to know. I absolutely did not have any plan to do anything like this. Never would have even thought about it at all. Yeah. The only reason I did is because I had a whole tour booked. We had just started. I feel like February was our only full month that we got to tour. We started the end of January, went out 2 or 3 weekends in February and 1 weekend at the beginning of March. And I remember I was supposed to do a Black Twitter event and that got pushed back. And I was like, man, Twitter is really taking this thing seriously. Like, that's crazy. They still paid me and I got the weekend off and I was like, this is great. This works out fantastic. And that was the last time I traveled and did comedy. It was all my March dates got blown out. And then, April, and I was like, okay, maybe we'll be back in May, and it's now October. And, I had the idea. What happened was great. I got to thank Dave Chappelle. We had the idea, but we hadn't done it yet. We were still trying to put it together. And then Dave Chappelle did that special where he did it outside. And it was like, oh, this is great. It gave people a most viable product. It was like, oh, this is how this could work. You could be socially distanced, stream, blah, blah, blah. We added the element of doing it live. His was, taped and then distributed. But for me, I'd gotten a lot of offers to do Zoom, stand up on Zoom and virtual rooms. And the only thing that I didn't like about that is there's no real-time laughter. So for comedy, as you know, Doug, and you know as well, you need people to either laugh or not laugh. And that tells you what you need to do. Exactly. And if that's not happening in real time, it's okay if your joke's hitting, but if a joke's not hitting, in real time, I need to adjust, tag or move on or pivot or whatever. And people waiting there, ha ha ha. You're like, oh my God. Now you might be talking over their laughter. Like, so for me, I was like, I didn't feel comfortable. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
That's the reason why I'm sorry. You and I, as they say, like-minded. That's the reason why I have not been able to do stand-up comedy through Zoom or just with no audience. I can't bring myself to do that. I've had several offers like you. I just cannot do it without an audience.
Doug, I'd love to have you on Keep Your Distance Comedy if you're willing. I would love to make amends. I don't know where you currently live, but I will fly you out and put you up at the Ritz to have you do it, because we have a live, very small. Basically, we have each comedian brings their someone, one person. We have the camera crew, so we keep it really, really small. But yeah, it was just
your offer is accepted. Man, let me show you how God works, man. Kevin, I'm gonna make sure I call you Kevin because it says
now it's
I'm a good friend named Kevon. That's why I keep calling him Kevon. But Kevin, I accept your offer, man, and I look forward to it, man. You are I love what you're doing. You are, as I said earlier, a do-it-yourself person. I don't want to talk too much, but offer accepted, man. You heard it first here on Comedy Hype.
Broke the news on Comedy Hype.
And Kev, you were actually touching on something that I really wanted to make sure we expounded on. Last question for you. The concept of the show, what makes it different from your typical Zoom to what you have?
The difference is the live audience. That is literally the difference. You have the comedians, all of us comedians have worked a room where there's only been 10 people in there. Right. You know what I mean? Especially when you're first starting or you're at open mic or you're just working out. You've worked that. But you can kill with 10 people there. You know what I mean? It's not going to sound like 500, but when you're killing, right? So that real time audience is there. And then the production value. If you're watching at home, we have, we're shooting 4 cameras. We got 4 cameras. So it looks like you're watching, something on Comedy Central being taped, and premiered to you, but it still has a live element. So I try new material out. Everything don't hit. You know what I mean? So you still have that element of like, oh, this is a real comedy show. So as a working comedian, it's probably the hardest comedy I've had to do because, when I'm touring, I'm performing minimum 5 times a week. That's minimum 2 on Friday, 2 on Saturday, 1 on Sunday. But now I'm essentially doing stand-up once every other week. You know what I mean? So I've got to work really hard to still be in a great place, but I love comedy so much. This is the only thing we have right now. We don't have LA. There's no comedy clubs open like they used to be.
Quick question for you, because I haven't done stand-up. And I want people to understand this in context, that stand-up is like boxing. It's like basketball. People don't see it that way, but it's something that you have to do on a continuous basis to stay sharp at it. You can't just start. And I haven't done comedy since March. Your first time back on stage, I'm assuming like me, there was a long layoff. Were you frightened? Did it take you a while? Because I got to get ready for this show now.
Yeah.
How long did it take you to get your legs back under you to where you felt comfortable?
Man, I probably was more nervous for that first show than when I had 4,000 people in Chicago. Because performing for a lot of people is easy when your material is tight. Right. But if you haven't done it in a while, and there's no way to do you can't do a warm-up show. You know what I mean? If you're a boxer, you can spar, you can fight a tomato can. There's ways to make sure you're back good. But if you're stand-up, the blessing and curse of it, you only do it live. You can only do it then. So to answer your question, Doug, I was terrified that first show. And I'm talking about, am I still funny? What if I forget? And of course I did. I forgot setups and tags and transitions, but I love stand-up so much. I found my groove, but I was super nervous. But in the other way, it's like riding a bike. You might not have done it in a while. You might wiggle a little bit, but you know what you're doing. You know what I mean? You've done it so many times, those muscles kick back in. So even at your rustiest, you're still going to have a great set.
I want you to introduce me like that. Say this guy hasn't done it yet. Because I have not done stand-up so much. In fact, your show will be the first time, I think, be the first stand-up that I've done since the COVID hit. So
And we're
I got you. I'll give them that. We tell the audience now. Listen, it only costs $12, and y'all watch it with that in mind. You know. You know what though? People be so happy to have even that stand up. You know, and the blessing of it is a lot of times people follow the comedians. They're learning about new comedians. That's kind of what I was trying to create. Like when I was coming up, there was Comic View, there was Def Comedy Jam. You know, you found these comedians. And then when their movies came out or their TV shows came out, you were able to support them in other ventures. So that's my ultimate goal for Keep Your Distance is for you to find new comedians who are guaranteed they're on social media, they're still performing, they got podcasts, they've got shows, you know, so you can follow them or find them, follow them, and then follow their career wherever it goes. And hopefully you found them through Keep Your Distance, or you knew about them on social media and just never got a chance to do them or see them do stand-up comedy, and now you can.
And Doug, we're definitely looking forward to seeing you on Keep Your Distance, which is every other Friday.
Every other Friday.
On KevOnStage.com. Now, Kev, I can't let you go without playing our card game. So Comedy Hype just released our first card game, which is based on everything you should know. So I'm going to ask you 3 questions and see if you are the king of comedy.
Okay.
You ready for that?
I'm ready.
All right, here we go. I'm gonna start easy and I'm gonna work my way up. Okay. All right, name the comedian. Okay, and this is an act out, so if you see me switch it up, it's because I'm acting. Name the comedian. She ready.
Tiffany Haddish.
Okay, that's it. I said easy. I said easy.
Your act out needs more work. You didn't even go in
I
nearly
was
as hard
gonna
as
do
you
it,
could
and
have.
I was like, my producer's gonna be like, she went too far. So I was like,
you gotta go hard.
She ready.
There you go. That's much better.
I just had to show I can do it. I just, they watching me behind. All right, here we go. Here's another one. Name the comedian. You gotta wash your ass.
Ooh. I feel like there's a lot of people who've said that.
So we have to narrow that down to him, because like he said, a lot of people have said that. Are you talking about the first comedian to do that? The first comedian to make that phrase popular?
Yep.
Okay, so this it's old school, Kevin. It's old school. So I know the answer to this question. If he doesn't get it, I'm his lifeline.
I don't know it.
You want to use your lifeline?
I do.
Red Fox.
Yep, that's it.
Come on, Kevin. Come on now, man. You got to get.
I'm sorry.
You just let the black community down. I just want to let you know that right now. You just let the black community down with that one.
All right, last one. And this one, Kev, this is all for all. Okay?
Okay.
Don't let me down. I'm probably gonna get in trouble for you for taking that acting up a little bit earlier. You gotta get this one, all right?
Okay.
Name the comedian.
Oh, come on, that's Pops.
There you go. All right.
Rest in peace, man.
Technically, he got all of them right with the lifeline.
You're right.
John Witherspoon, man, rest in peace. I met him in the airport. He was so kind to me. Great guy. His son is great and hilarious as well. Funny guy, man. So proud to have met him and watched his work basically all my life. He was a part of comedy my entire life.
Absolutely. Same here, and I'm sure we can all agree to that. I want to thank you both so much for calling and joining us on the Comedy Hype News Show. Be sure to catch Keep Your Distance on KevOnStage.com every other Friday. And if you want to take the Comedy Hype trivia game home, be sure to check it out on Comedy Hype Shop on ComedyHype.com. For Comedy Hype News, I'm Symphony Thompson.